guys, so sorry I am about 10 minutes late. I'm having issues with going live. I could not go live on my computer, so I had to go get my phone. The lighting is a little bit weird, but I haven't really shared my coaching story lately. So I'm going to kind of share my coach story, share how I got into coaching, share more of the nitty gritty, the income type stuff, where I've been struggling and where I've dug myself out and why I'm looking for amazing people to partner with me in 2020. So basically, if you don't know me, my name is Erin Wester, also known as the Fit Spiritual Mom. I'm known that way. Facebook, Instagram, all the platforms, YouTube. I'm the Fit Spiritual Mom. Basically, when I first started coaching back in 2010, so we're coming up on a 10-year anniversary, I was 30 years old. I was still not 100% sure what I wanted to do with my life. I was graduating with my master's degree in a few months. And, I got my master's degree in clinical social work with an emphasis in school social work. But so many people would apply for every school social worker job that I knew it was going to be very hard to find a job. So I kind of went into child protection because that's what I did in undergrad. I focused on child protective services, and I knew that it was pretty easy to get a job in that field, and I ended up getting a job as an investigator for the state of Wisconsin in Milwaukee, downtown Milwaukee. So that is my first job that I had out of college. When I became a coach, I did not have a job. I was working at Starbucks, and I had $100,000, over $100,000 in student loans. I got my undergrad at a public university. A lot of that was paid for by grants because I was a single mom. But my master's degree I had to do completely with loans. I also borrowed extra to pay my living expenses because, as I said, I was a single mom. My son was, I believe, 3 at the time. I was living with my parents. I basically fled a domestic violence relationship in 2006. June of 2006, moved from Minneapolis to Lake Geneva. I moved in with my parents while I was pregnant, and that's the story of that, is that I had a social worker because I was on state assistance. This is really how bad I was. I was living off credit cards. I didn't have health insurance. This was just my life before moving back. This was like my 20s. It was debt, credit cards, no medical care, alcoholism, marijuana, cocaine. It was all the things that I was taught were bad, are all the things that I did. And, my parents paid for college the first time around. I ended up getting kicked out of college after 4.5 years because I just stopped going to classes. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I'd had 3 different majors. I'd been an animal science major. I'd been a business major. I had been a theater major. I just had no clue what I wanted to do with my life. I even went to Arizona for a year to escape that relationship for a little while and to see if I wanted to be a horse trainer. Hated it there. I was so far from family. It was hot. I was away from this horrible boyfriend, which at the time was not as horrible as the relationship ended up as. Because when I moved back from Arizona to Minnesota, I moved in with him, and that's when the relationship became violent. Found out more about the drug dealing that was going on, the drug growing that was going on, just the horrible environment that I was moving myself into. I had 2 jobs. I was paying all the bills. They weren't paying anything. I had my boyfriend plus 2 other roommates. We were hiding a roommate in the basement. This was my life, guys. I didn't have money. I put everything on credit cards. I was probably $50,000 in debt from credit cards. Everything had gone into collections. I just didn't care. That was just the mentality of my life, is that I just didn't care anymore. So when I moved back to Wisconsin, I had a social worker, had to go on state assistance, went back to school. Basically, I had to take to get back into UW-Whitewater, I had to take 2 classes, a social work class and a government class, and prove that I could get good grades for them to let me in as a full-time student. I got 2 A's. They let me back in. I graduated with my bachelor's degree in social work with honors. I went from a 1.75 up to 3.75. And yes, they did count that 1.75 from before. So I completely turned my life around. Again, I went to private graduate school, was going to be a school social worker. Things don't always work out. All during that time, my son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and that is actually how I got his biological father out of his life. He refused to take the diabetes classes. He refused to pay child support. He refused to do anything. So he has basically been out of my life since I met my husband, now husband, then boyfriend. I met him right around when my son was diagnosed. So about 9 years ago, I met my current husband. We started dating. And my life completely changed. I was already a coach. I was already starting to have success. I really became a coach because I had 75 pounds to lose after having my son. And I did lose those pounds. 2011, I was at my fittest. That was the year I met my husband. And I was just feeling amazing about myself. My business was doing great. I was making such good money. Then the stress of being an investigator in child protection just took over my life, and I stopped coaching, I stopped working out, I stopped taking care of myself. Obviously, I was still taking care of my son. I still had a relationship. My family was still close by, but everything just kind of dropped down. Ended up getting engaged, ended up getting married, went on the Beachbody Success Club trip for our honeymoon because, guys, I earned the trip. I did just enough to earn the trip. And when we went on this cruise, this was for our honeymoon after we got married in 2014, I saw all these couples, all these people that had earned all this money. They got to stay home with their kids. They got to retire their spouse. They paid off their student loans. At this point, I still had so much debt, you guys. I was still $30,000 in debt from credit cards. I had my car. I had personal loans. I had my $120,000 of student loans. Was all. I just kept pushing it back because I just wasn't making a lot of money then. I was making, I think, $30-some thousand as a social worker. Beachbody's money was making it so I could be a social worker. So you're like, oh, $30,000. Yep, that's what I was making then. Not now. That's what I was making back in 2014. I think it was $32,000. But Beachbody made it so that I could be a social worker. At the time, I was maybe making $500 extra a month as a coach, but that $500 extra paid for groceries. That was huge. It paid for groceries for our family. And that $500 was a big deal. If I didn't have that $500, I would have had to go get a second job. So 2014, we were on this cruise, and I said, you know what? Oh, we can do this. We wanted to have more kids. My son was from a previous relationship. My husband wanted kids from his previous relationship. They had miscarriages. They'd not been able to have kids. So we wanted more kids. At the time, I thought I wanted to stay home with my kids. That was what I wanted to do. I wanted to be home with my kids. I was sick of working in social work because I just had not found my passion yet. I had not found my calling in social work yet. So I was 2014, I came home. In the midst of that, the coach that brought me on, which is someone I went to high school with, left Beachbody. I ended up having this new coach at the time, Barbie Decker. She had been in the business for a long time. She was super shiny. She was a millionaire. She was just super intimidating for me at the time. But I went on that trip in 2014, and I knew I needed to reach out to her, and I needed to stop ghosting her and ignoring her, and I needed to do this for real. So between April 2014 and July 2014, I rank advanced 4 ranks. I tripled my income. I was making my dream happen. I was on the track to, when we had our kids, being able to stay home. At that point, I was close, so close to making almost as much as I was making at my social work job. Not quite there, but so close. I was just elated, and I kept building, and I kept building, and I kept building. And in 2015, we found out we were going to have a baby. 2015, we found out we were going to have a baby. Then guess what? We found out we were going to have twins. And then it was super, super, super imperative that I make enough money to stay home. It was basically make double what you're making right now, and you could stay home. I think at that time I was making $36,000. It's double what you're making, you can stay home. Well, things don't always work out how we want them to. And, it was a twin pregnancy. So I ended up having to go on early bed rest, having to go on half time, and then take maternity leave early, which means I would have had to take almost 12 weeks of maternity leave from my job. I hadn't been at my job for a year yet. And HR just wouldn't approve it. So basically, I was told that I would not have a job to go back to. That was the reality. It was like, okay, you have 4 weeks that you're going to get half pay, and then you're done. Basically, that was how it all went down. And so I didn't have a job to quit when my maternity leave was over, which that was the plan, that I was going to, when it was time to go back to maternity leave, that I was going to say, nope, I'm going to stay home. At that time, I had almost doubled my social work salary. I think I made $50,000 with Beachbody that year, 55, 60, somewhere around there. So, I mean, I was super, super close to doubling my income, and all those extra expenses of, gas, just all the extra expenses that come along with working outside the home, having people take care of our son, daycare costs for twins, what that would be, it was just so much more worth it for me to stay home. And then if you guys haven't followed me very long, we ended up, when the twins were 6 days old, one of the twins had a heart attack. At home, she had a heart attack. Couldn't resuscitate her in time, called 911. They got her resuscitated, but at that point, she was in a coma. She wasn't breathing. Went to Children's Hospital. This was when they were 6 days old. Spent 6 more days in the hospital. On the 4th day, we were informed that her brain stem was dead. She was never going to wake up. She was going to have to be on machines for the rest of her life. She had not tried to breathe on her own. They had thought there had been some brain waves, but it was really just seizure activity. Her body was shutting down, basically. And at that time, we made the decision to let her go. We didn't want to do pictures at first, but then I changed my mind. I'm so glad I did. And we have the pictures. I post them quite often. I need to post them more. But, beginning of November, we didn't have 3 kids anymore. We had 2 on Earth. Now we still have 3 kids. But the bills, right? $3,500 medical bill, which if it wasn't for having good insurance, would have been over $100,000. No joke. So $3,500 medical bill. Obviously, we didn't have the money just sitting around to bury a child. So all of that was paid for with Beachbody. I didn't have to take time off, take bereavement. I didn't have to worry about my job. Those are things that I didn't have to worry about when we were in the hospital for 6 days, which I refused to leave the hospital in those 6 days. I didn't have to worry about a boss. Obviously, I was not working my business though, but my team stepped up. People from other teams stepped up and helped. Beachbody saved our lives back in 2015. If it wasn't for Beachbody, I don't know what we would have done. We would not have been able to pay our bills. We would not have been able to pay that huge medical bill. We would not have been able to bury our daughter. Those are just things that we would not have been able to do if it wasn't for Beachbody. Obviously, after that happened, I was a completely different person. The way I coached was not working how it worked before, and I let myself grieve more than I worked. And obviously, that made my business fall, but I was able to stay home with my daughter for 18 months. I kind of had a thought that at some point I was going to have to go back to work. I thought that was going to be maybe when both kids were in school full time, I go back to work, or have had these student loans paid off by then. But those $100,000 in student loans are still over my head. And that amount of time between 2014 when I went all in and when I went back to work in 2017, though I had paid off all my credit card debt, while my business was slowly declining. This decline took 18 months to happen. And, that debt luckily had been paid off. We paid off the medical bill. We paid to bury our daughter. It's expensive to have a funeral and bury a child and buy a casket. That's expensive. That's something that you just don't plan for. My husband had to take extra time off, obviously. That's therapy, right? Those are all things that you don't think about expenses being. So in 2017, I went back to work. I became a supervisor and hated it. I absolutely hated it. Ended up losing that job I'm trying to think when I lost the job, about a year and a half into that job, I lost that job. And really was like, you know what? I'm going to take this time to figure out what I'm really meant to be, what I'm really meant to do. I thought, what I was doing at the time when I got pregnant was what I would do forever. That's what I thought, got the promotion, became a supervisor, but that's not what I wanted. So it took me 6 weeks, but I found my dream career. Now I have been doing my dream career for 1 year, 3 months. That's how long I have been doing it. And you know what? It has been so amazing. I wake up happy to go to work. I get to change lives. I investigate adult protective services, which is totally different than child protective services because they're adults. They get to make their own decisions. They get to make bad decisions. We just offer them the help that we can, get them services, do whatever we can do to help. And that is like the best feeling in the world. I'm in the car a lot. I listen to a lot of personal development, and it's something that I've needed. I've been slowly building my business back up, and I'm finally at a point myself personally where I know exactly what kind of people I want on my team. I know exactly what we need to do to be successful. And I'm just excited to take this journey with new blood, new amazing people that get me, that want the same things that I have been where I have been in my life, and just wants more. Again, I couldn't be a social worker. Sure, I make a heck of a lot more money now than I used to make. But I still could not be a social worker without coaching. People say, how do you do it? How do you work full time with a long commute, 2 kids, activities, coaching business? It does take work, but it's work that is valuable. It is work that makes me feel amazing. It is work that needs to be done because so many people are overweight. So many people are give to other people and don't give to themselves. I'm at a point where my income's growing. I made a huge goal to triple my income this year. I did it in 2014, and in 2015 I doubled it with losing a child. So you know what? Anybody can do this if you really put the work in, really put the time in. Obviously, when you start, an hour a day will work, but you're going to be so passionate and love it so much, you're going to put in 2 to 3 hours a day. I get up early. I do a morning routine. I work on my lunch break. I listen to personal development in my car. I work when my kids go to bed, but I still have that 2 to 3 hours of unplugged time with my kids every night. I still work maybe 3 or 4 hours on a Saturday and a Sunday and spend the rest of the day with my family. So I still have major priorities, but changing lives of women is something I'm passionate about. Yes, protecting elderly and disabled adults is a true passion. It is where I'm meant to be in my career, but doing this feeds another passion. This feeds another part of me to give back. Especially those mamas who've lost a baby, who've had miscarriages, that just are stuck and don't know what to do. I'm here. I literally just registered for my 3rd free trip, guys. Got in the opt-in list, so when I get off that list, I wasn't able to do it for this year just because moving and building a house and not 100% feeling safe going to the Dominican Republic. It's a personal decision. But next year it's at Riviera Maya, Mexico. We are so going. And I'm going to try to convince my husband to let us bring the kids. We'll see how that goes. But, when I'm off that list, because I could have registered last year. But again, personal decision. But this year, we are going, for next year, 2021. We are going. We are in, and we're gonna have fun with our Beachbody family. I made a commitment to be at every single event. I'm going to Rise with Rachel Hollis in June in San Diego. Just guys, this year is gonna be huge, and I just need some amazing ladies who are ready to do the dang thing and change some lives. You know, we have quarterly conferences, quarterly events where you meet up with local people close to you and make connections and learn. We have yearly Coach Summit in New Orleans, have the Success Club trips where all you have to do to earn those are help 3 people a month. That's it. Get 3 people a month to join you on your group, which I will teach you how to run a group. Get people who want to make a little extra cash on the side or want to build big businesses to do this alongside you. There's training, guys. There's training from amazing top coaches that we have available to us. Support you every second of the way. First, we're going to work on your physical transformation, start sharing your physical journey, and people are going to come to you and want to do this with you. So let's do it. Bye, guys. Talk to you soon.